Тож ми починаємо наступне.
We start the next panel, which is dedicated to the topic of Energy Efficiency Fund. This is a kind of a mystery because we talked about the warm credits program and we have already experienced how it works, and it was very good that Yulia Sabatyuk from Lutsk, from condominium, was present, and she told us how it works in practice. Because and as concerned the fund, the question was raised several years ago. Last year we couldn't understand whether it would be established. This year much efforts have been put by the ministry to create this fund, so many steps have already been made. We started with a concept which was presented in February this year. It is rather extended one, where the analysis was provided of the potential of housing sector as concerns savings, energy savings, and we also, so the concept was supported by most of experts. We surveyed the experts and they supported the fact of establishing it. The question whether it is needed, this question is not feasible because majority agrees that we need it, but the question is when it would be established. In May, the National Council of Reforms had a meeting where the concept of the fund was presented, and in July the concept of the fund was approved by the government by its regulation. This concept is an official document now, and recently, several weeks ago, the Ministry of Regional Development presented the draft law on energy efficiency. The question is, jointly with all these documents, they should be accompanied by many other regulations in the same package. It is about commercial metering. We need draft law because otherwise we don't have figures. Then also audit, certification, they also should be legalized by laws. And draft law on housing and communal services, it is also needed. So very many tasks we now face, and I hope we will cope with them. And today we invited people, deputies, and Ministry of Regional Development, but they didn't appear. But we have guests: Sergiy Maslichenko, representative of Energy Efficiency Department of EBRD, Mr. Krzysztof Gierulski, energy efficiency expert, representative of European delegation, support of Ukraine, and Dmytro Naumenko, Ukrainian Center of European Policy, senior analyst. We will talk today besides the fund, how it will look like, but we also talk about how to accelerate its creation. How can we do this? Mr. Zubko articulated the dates when the fund would be created and what draft laws this year and next year should be adopted, and what structure would be created. So can we accelerate this process if we have even problem with warm credits program continuation? I would like to sum up why we are talking about this energy efficiency fund. What was told today about warm credits, why the fund? It should have three characteristics distinguishing it from warm credits program, which is easy. The first feature is sustainability, stability. It should be a long-term fund for the population to be confident that it will not disappear. The products can change, but the fund should be a stable institution. The second is complex or integrated approach. Measurability of results. We are talking here about integrated modernization. More than half of measures under the warm credit programs, it was just replacement of windows. Talking about the fund, we are talking about large-scale modernization of the housing stock. This is where the fund will be targeted to the outcome. The better the energy efficiency level we can achieve in the building, the higher would be support from the state. The energy efficiency fund should provide capability to measure the result. This is the third characteristic, third parameter, so that we can measure the efficiency of the fund and plan how to develop for future. The question is, what is the potential of this fund? As we have no representatives of the ministry, but we have community activists watching over the concept and the process of establishing this fund, we will be able what fund is planned. So we give the floor to Alexander Naumenko. Good afternoon to everyone. I would like to make an introductory speech to this topic. I will give background aspects, technical aspects of the fund operation. First, this is important fund, and we will look into its potential in terms of the whole economy of the country and energy savings in the energy sector in particular. As concerns macroeconomic aspect, this instrument is of national importance. It is important for the country in general in terms of security, national security. Why is it so? Because the need in natural gas to provide gas, to supply gas to individuals, the gas which we burn to provide heating to in households, this is 18 billion cubic meters as of today. About half of this consumption we import. Thanks to our state and gas suppliers, we shifted from Russian gas. We take gas from Western Europe, but anyway, any situation when we depend on imports of this energy source, it adds instability to the country because we depend on the natural gas market in Europe, which also has risks. And the situation today could be favorable for us, enough gas and low prices, and tomorrow any shock may happen, either no gas, no available amounts, or maybe European Union will have yet another quarrel with Russia, and we will become the hostage of the situation. So the optimum way in this situation would be to reduce the gas consumption for heating, for district heating inside the country. So according to expert estimates which the working group presented at the beginning of summer, the general potential of gas savings if we launch the fund and implement all its programs, this would be 11 billion cubic meters of natural gas. This is very big amount, so we will be able to save the gas which we now just lose. We waste it heating our not energy efficient buildings. And the housing sector is the most painful problem of today because this potential, if we look at it in terms of segments of heat supply market at the stages of generation and transportation of heat, we lose 2.5 billion cubic meters of gas, and at the consumption, at this side of consumption, we can save 9 billion cubic meters of gas. This is the figure of losses. So to this segment, we focus our efforts. The fund, the energy efficiency fund, will focus on these items. And we will eliminate these losses via the fund. In terms of macroeconomy, there is another aspect which concerns payment balance. When we import gas, we spend our foreign exchange reserves, and this then impact on our national currency, and also 25 billion hryvnias of losses we have, and launching the energy efficiency fund, we can shift the burden from payment balance. This would add us macroeconomic stability. The second absent is to save on subsidies which are now provided to households on energy resources. Previously, our subsidies were 100 million hryvnias in 2014. Now we provide direct subsidies, but this is high burden on our national budget because these amounts continue to increase. 41 billion hryvnia are in the budget for the next year. More than 5 million households in the countries are provided subsidies. This heating seasons we are going to experience real shock. According to the estimates of the Minister of Social Policy, there will be 7 to 8 million households granted subsidies. To reduce the amount of subsidies, for this reason we also need to launch the energy efficiency fund and to reduce consumption. This would provide us the opportunity to reduce costs of the state for these subsidies. The potential is 25 billion hryvnias in total. According to preliminary estimates, the energy efficiency fund could provide about 5 billion savings in hryvnias annually. Finally, the fund will open new market on energy efficiency services provision. This is energy services, energy audit, and construction companies services. This means this would open us absolutely new market. According to preliminary estimates, it may reach 60 billion hryvnias, and this would provide 75 million of jobs. This business activity would promote additional proceeds to the national budget, about 10 billion hryvnias, which could be also used further as the source of national support, allocations to the capital of this energy efficiency fund. So to finalize, we can say that this fund can become a very important national instrument which will help households and will lift a burden from the national budget and will promote business activity in the segment of energy efficiency and construction. Thank you.
There is we compared with Slovakia, as we heard in hryvnias. They said it was 200 or 300 million of euros, about 6 billion hryvnias a year. This is the fund of Slovakia, and you know the figures that are planned for the fund. How can we compare them with the example of Slovakia?
Зараз говорити якусь конкретну цифру, тому що на даному етапі
It's difficult to say about the figure. Now there is negotiation between the Ukrainian government and the international community about the allocation to these funds, and in 5 years what will be provided, what funds will be provided, and state funds 800 million, and donors are ready to provide 3 billion hryvnias to this fund. According to the estimates of the group that worked this summer, the fund will get about 15 or 16 billion of hryvnias in so these sums, they are not comparable with the figures that you presented. Maybe we will spend less, but we should start the process. We have great internal potential to save on subsidies, and we should use this mechanism and also to include the contributions of international donors. So about international donors and support of Ukraine. So there is a program on home credits, and in spring we have IQ Energy project supported by European Bank of Development. And I have a question to Sergiy. Do we have energy efficiency market, and is it interesting to investors, and what is the role of the Fund of Energy Efficiency in this? The IQ Energy program was introduced in July this year, and it works for 4 months. There are some positive results. It is in its initial stage, but we use also grant co-financing in this project. This is Eastern European Partnership Fund, and we have 15 million euro, and this is provided by European states. And the general volume of this program is 75 million euros, and this is for the start. And there are a lot of problems with this because we need to finance more projects in the sphere of condominium, and you know that this area is not covered by this program, because at the moment there are only 2 banks that work, Bank and OTP Bank. This sector is difficult for them, it is small, and they do not clearly understand the sector. And there should be changes in legislation and regulatory acts first, because we heard about the examples of condominium. These are heroes, and in 2 years and a half, only 400 condominium were financed in Ukraine. Majority, 90% are small investment, for example, replacement of windows or setting of boilers. So this is not a systemic investment in energy efficiency. But these complex projects we were speaking in previous session, these are exceptions. People who invested a lot of time and energy in order to create the condominium and to get the financing. When we speak about financing mechanisms, the EBRD, we use market instruments that are in operation for a long time, for 10 years. Our financing mechanism is used in 20 countries of Europe and Eastern Europe. In Turkey, the 3 billion euros were provided to 100 banks, and this instrument is the most effective market mechanism of financing through donor co-financing through commercial banks. So this is right commercial mechanism that under some condition can provide great results. But the role of the state is to change the environment, to help those condominium to get prepared to create structures and to apply and we are speaking about overall things, about funds, about the structure of governance, and this is all secondary. The first is basic changes in relationship between consumers and providers, because the law on communal services is not adopted and the subsidies are not reformed, and no one works on the systemic level. People don't want to create condominia because if there are many owners, it is difficult to create condominia. You should convince the owners of flats to create this condominia. It is mostly impossible. So when the conditions are changed, market mechanisms will work. And our program, IQ Energy, that was started, we financed about 800 credits on the whole number, 16 million hryvnias. As for the start, it is a good result, but the same structure. In the majority of cases, these are the replacement of windows, the establishment of boilers. So all the aims, all the goals, and transparency monitoring and big advantages, they are present. And we have powerful team of the management of these projects that is co-funded by donor organization. It monitors the program and manages it, and there can be capital investment when the conditions will be proper. So there should be a request, there should be demand. Unless there is demand, no one is going to finance. And for big banks like Czech Bank, these are state banks, they do not always follow market principle. There are some administrative measures, and systemic big international banks, they should see real changes in the sector, real demand, and then, like in all other countries, they will provide financing. Thank you. So, did real changes started? Of course, starting 2009, we work with the Ministry of Regional Development in order to improve legislation together with our colleagues from International Financial Cooperation. We helped in the work in the sphere of legislation and bylaws concerning energy efficiency in buildings, and we started this program understanding that there will be changes, basic changes. First, this is law on household services, energy efficiency, metering, and law on regulator. And we expect those changes, and we started our activity and we should start it early in order that banks understand how these projects are financed. And now there is some sort of break because we wait for real changes, and then we can work full scale, and other projects of warm credits will work as well. And international companies and banks such as European Financial Cooperation and Investment Bank, they could start their project, and financing will be there. And we should prepare, structure them properly, and then there won't be any issues on these programs. The matter is not in money, it is in conditions, the environment that should be created and that is not reformed yet. So the question, the programs, there should be several programs, they can work parallel. And what is the role of the fund in the programs, if there are several programs? We cooperate greatly with the warm credit program. They have some big rates, and they provide 30%, and we heard 35% or even 7% for subsidy as in condominium. These rates are not stable. You know that the money is over because 30% is a big sum, and they are not able to cover it. And according to our estimates, we decided to start from 15 or 20% for physical persons and 25-30 for condominium, based on calculation that there are not many of these clients. And we welcome healthy competitions between banks, and then the banks will decrease the rates and will improve conditions. And this will be better for the sector, for financing, the role of the fund. It is difficult for me to say. There should be leading role of state governmental bodies, the ministries, in the changes that I've mentioned, and in provision of state co-financing and help to vulnerable categories of population. Now, the question to Krzysztof as the representative of the European Commission. I know that you, from the very start, you participated in the creation of Energy Efficiency Fund, and we are speaking about big money. We can compare it with the Kyoto money that Ukraine got, and unfortunately, we do not know where this money is, and what are the main requirements of the European Commission towards this fund? What do you expect? What it will be like, and how not to repeat the story of the Kyoto money? Thank you very much for this invitation to this meeting. I would like to say that the European Union supports Ukraine in this area. Everyone speaks about warm credits, but maybe you don't know that it started with the support of the European Union to the budget of Ukraine, and then this credit started, and then these credits were provided from the budget, and this is supported by the money of the European Union. And as we now see it, a lot should be done in Ukraine, and it should be done fast in order to change the situation. And that's why the decision was taken to work together with the government of Ukraine to develop and to create this fund. And I believe that if we collect this money, it won't be enough comparing with what we should do and what money is spent for subsidies, for example. You're right when you were saying that it should be done properly. And in Slovakia, we have good experience. And now IQ Energy is implemented. That is a great project. It is implemented step by step. And we move forward. And the fund should go even more forward. And what should be done? First, we can say this like this. So there are conditions of agreement. This is part of European legislation that should be implemented in Ukraine. And the fund is needed despite of everything, despite of EU. It should be done in Ukraine. And what we see, what are the important conditions? If we look at what is done in all the countries of the European Union, there should be the fund. It shouldn't be just as a bag with money in order to invest into thermal modernization of buildings. It should be as an instrument, as a system. And the system should have important elements without which it won't be possible to go further. And here, my colleague said that there should be systemic approach of monitoring verification in order to see where this money goes. And the European Union wants to provide money, of course, we want to improve the situation, to increase the comfort, but also there should be influence on energy balance of Ukraine and stabilization of the economy and decrease of terrible losses of energy that are ongoing in the housing sector. And we should see the situation, and there is no such verification system at the moment, and it should come into existence and the part of this fund. There should be technical office, technical assistance office that will verify the system on a systemic level, but it's not enough because the money bag will be on the table and no one will take it. And as I see the situation, what the European Union is interested in providing to this fund, and there should be money to the fund, but there should be money for technical support and for information campaign, for technical advice to people how prepare these documents correctly, how to prepare these projects. And so the system is simple, but we thought that the majority of funds went for the replacement of windows. But the amount of effect on the energy efficiency in these buildings are about zero. Because these investments should be done correctly, if we do it in a correct way, first we should make diagnosis and to carry out audit on energy efficiency in order to show to people how they can yield more effect for less money. And it should be a part of the system of the fund, because the fund should not be just a bag with money. It should be a system of support for those who will take this money in order to invest in the buildings. And this is very important. And also about legal condition. The European Union always says, and Sergiy Maslichenko supported it, that we should implement legislation that will help to stimulate investment. This package that is now is at the Supreme Council with a draft law on commercial metering, energy efficiency in buildings, and in about communal services. So this should be implemented. These are primary laws that should be adopted, and then bylaws should be adopted in order that this implemented properly. And our EBRD colleagues work on some bylaws on energy efficiency of buildings, and this law was not adopted yet. And the European Union reserved the money for the projects that will support other parts of the bylaws in this area. And of course, this work should be done in the Ministry of Regional Development, and here we should see that this work is done properly, because people need this law in order to stimulate these investments. Technical support should be provided in order to properly prepare these projects and in order to provide information to people, because they should choose what should be done in their situation. And if the system works properly, that will yield results. So this is what I wanted to say. Thank you. So the question is, we have such a situation that we have a lot of draft laws. They are not adopted, and now they work on bylaws. And for the fund for the next year, they envisaged in the draft budget 800 million hryvnias, and at the same time, there is no such draft law. So we should make this process fast. And from one side, we want that this fund was put into operation, and we want that it should be of quality. Whether we should accelerate this process, what is the main focus? Quality or the fast implementation?
I don't know whether my answer will be right. This instrument will be created not for 1 year. It is reasonable to make it as a system which will work for many years. Here, this would be enough room for work for 15 or 20 years. The system will change year after year, but at the very beginning, these conditions which I told about, they are anywhere should be met. The requirements should be met. In 2017, there will be difficulties because the fund will only start its work, its operation, and there next year we can suppose some problems, and we think how, and we should talk how to help this fund to start its operation faster and smoothly when all the system of support is in place in 2018 and further on. I think it would work. The money which the European Union want to put into the fund, about 100 million euros, and Germany 25 million euros. They are conditional. If all these conditions are met, such as legislation, the law on energy efficiency fund, and if the fund is established, then this money could be used. Next year, there will be complex in terms of, in technical terms, first months will be rather difficult. As concerns the speed, we already know that grant funding depends on adoption of the laws, and we know how the draft laws may be pending in the Verkhovna Rada for several years. From my own experience, as I have created many programs, you keep yourself, IQ Energy, FFP, on average, creating the program and adopting it takes 2 years, so it is not real to launch it in March next year. From my experience, we first should know what shape, what structure will be in the fund, because I looked into the draft law and it talks us about financial institutions. This would be just new development bank which would be established from scratch, and for creating a program, attracting donors, all this bureaucracy take as usual 2 years in Ukraine without delays if we do everything according to the law. Yes. I think we should divide the draft law on the fund. Is not about the instrument. We should work 1 year. It would work more years, many years. The law also should put conditions, legal conditions for where the fund can go to. This draft law about establishing the fund is not quite finalized. I would not like to talk about it but the first year, of course, the fund will not operate at the investment bank, as you said. This is we have here the banking system to launch the fund faster. Maybe this is the answer. We need this fund as fast as possible so that it would work, but not just to have money on its account. So many questions remain unanswered, whether there would be some only registering and would be efficient if only metering is in place, and what about energy certification? Indeed, all the discussions, I've been at many presentations of the fund, the concept have been changing all the time. If this is not the institution, not the lending institutions, it could be like yet another fund such similar to FFP. It would be just another fund that of course it can operate, but how it would have relations with banks or presentations which I heard, they are about advantages, how many meters of gas will be saved, but they don't say what would be the relations between the banks and the fund, whether it would be loans or grants or whatever. So I think that frankly speaking, we work much with all commercial banks in Ukraine, which are our clients. We talk to them and we know what can work in Ukraine, what can't work in Ukraine. So when the program is prepared, we should take into account what can be done with the banks. And here the way was just quite vice versa. Nobody talked to banks, and they have very many questions which remain beyond the framework of discussions. I would answer you at once now. We work together with experts of international finance cooperation. This is IFC is a part of the World Bank, and it will help with establishing the fund. And as far as I understand, in all international financial institutions, they have procedures and criteria on which basis we can work together with banks. And here our position is The fund can work with many banks, both commercial banks and those which work today with warm loans, so that good coverage is providing, good outreach, so all districts, all towns, they should be covered, and competition should be available between those bank institutions which will be using this assistance. The more banks, the better. Then we have question remaining: how will the fund would look like, which would provide final products to consumers? Which final products would be? There are many already developed outlines. We have here Mr. Sabatyuk. What product would be interesting for you as condominium? So what do you think about the kind of product which would be different from warm credits and could be effective, efficient, for the system to work properly and fast, as fast as possible? What standard products we need? I think I would repeat what we do not have now. To assist people, on the one hand, to have such standard products such as many buildings in Ukraine, they are similar to each other, and in many of them we need to do this local heat distribution and metering stations, and some valves should be installed and meters. This would be a simple package which would be similar for many buildings, a standard one, so it would be good to have also such technical assistance to borrowers to look into the situation, what is the actual situation in every building, because the level, the scope of required measures would differ. In one building, local heat distribution metering station would be enough, and in other buildings, the pipelines could be so corroded that the station would not be enough. The pipes also should be changed. But we need also electrotechnical energy support in order to individualize this, customize these projects so that they have more effect. Could you tell us more about the products which are already included into the concepts of the Energy Efficiency Fund, which we could see in the documents already? We can tell that that they are final products which are approved. We can't say so. The concept will be reviewed significantly. So the concept which was presented in the beginning of summer this year, there were products of fund categorized in two categories. One for private houses and other for multi-apartment houses, and they were divided also by complexity. There were two very simple packages which included basics such as meter and Windows installations, the simplest energy efficiency measures, and the savings were estimated at 15%. And larger projects were included in other packages, thermal modernization with estimated effect of 50% in savings of costs of consumption reduction. Mr. Zubko said that the amount of compensation or grant for condominium may reach 50% if post-audit, ex-post audit will demonstrate that modernization is compliant with Class A building according to European standards. So the concept will stipulate for linked to technical outcomes of energy efficiency. The higher the savings, the more compensation would be provided to the borrower by the state. All details are unknown today because they are in the process of calculation. Do you have any questions in the audience? Yes, we have some. First channel, Odessa. The question is, when the energy efficiency fund will start working? Maybe this is the question to the Ministry of Regional Development. Well, it depends on different factors. We need the laws to be adopted, and technically the fund should be constructed. This will take time, of course, but the opinion is that it should start working. It should start operation in the second half of 2017. There will be technical difficulties from the beginning. So that it start operating at once in all over Ukraine, in all cities and towns. This is its fundamental principles. It would not be divided into regions. It would cover the whole country, and its work will depend on the regional initiative. The fund should be the system, not like a bag. I told that already. I hope that there will be experts who will work in regions, cities and towns, helping people to write projects. So in the second half of 2017 it will start operation. Are there people who can really implement, who can work in this fund, who are capable of this? I think so. As I've already said, if you talk about technical assistance to help people to write good projects, there are already several experts who have been working in this sector. They work in the network of International Financing Corporation of the World Bank. It could be bridging project. So in order to multiply to the number of experts, so we have enough experts to cover the whole territory of Ukraine. We have the question from Kherson by Skype, UCMC of Kherson. Anastasia Sentsova, journalist of Politichna Khersonshina. What mechanism would be in the energy efficiency fund that would provide transparency of its operation? What would ensure transparency of this fund? There should be European delegations requirement to this fund. This is a technical question now. Consultants are working on this. We have been working together with good experts of International Finance Corporation, which have experience, vast experience of working in different countries all over the world. So there are certain procedures which have been tested in other countries, and I hope that if will replicate this quality of international institutions in the Energy Efficiency Fund in Ukraine, it would work, I think. I can add that there are concepts in the concept which have been publicized. We saw the outline of the structure that the highest body of management and control over the fund, this would be a steering committee. Its essence is that this fund will be not just governmental body. Supervision will depend, will be on the part of international community because they are one of the funding partners, and it will have rather high provisions to control the strategy of the fund, development of the products, how this mechanism would be adjusted. There will be also executive body. In the last update, it is named directorate. So directors will be independent, which are not linked to the government in any way. They will be technical experts. This will minimize political influence and political risks and corruption risks in the process of the provision of funding and relationship with the banks. So engaging international community, this is one of the best guarantees of transparency of the fund's operations, and also transparent legislation should be adopted. So such as draft law on energy efficiency fund. We have time for one question. Association of, it is very good that the question was asked that the fund needs banking products with certain parameters. Repayment period should be reasonable for Ukraine. If EBRD provide 12 years payback period, we need less payback period than 12 years in Ukraine. Starting the fund, it is vague thing. Before it starts operation, do you see the need to implement pilot projects with the most standard formats of buildings for any condominium which live in such standard type building? Could 90% understand what they should do when they conduct thermal modernization efforts and engage loans to this end? About pilot project, I think here in Ukraine we are now in such condition when from pilot project we should go to faster replication. We are talking about model projects which could be, they are typical projects, model projects. Now the projects are being implemented which DENA, German agency, funds which focused on this problem. And this model projects, they will be continuous. They are planned not only for next year. The technical assistance department of the fund, they should monitor how the pilot projects develop. The situation will change in 3 or 5 years, and they should supervise. So model project, this is a part of activities of this technical back office. It is not yet in operation, but there are projects which tackle this topic. What is important for the fund to prepare the projects, waiting for the fund as soon as it is launched, they would be funded from the energy efficiency fund. Now we are talking how to help in this situation, so this would be the work for next year. Thank you very much. Thank you to our experts, and thank you for questions to the audience. Now we will have discussion during coffee break of efforts. At 1 o'clock we will start our third panel on monetization of subsidies. We wait representatives of the Ministry of Finance to join us in 30 minutes. After the third panel, we will have dinner.